All right, get ready for one of the most bizarre cybercrime stories you will ever hear. I mean, it's got everything. A reclusive genius, a legendary dark web marketplace, and a pile of money so big it doesn't seem real. We are talking about $3.4 billion. Just to give you a sense of scale, this was one of the single largest crypto seizures in the history of the United States. And the craziest part? Where they found it was right here, tucked inside an old, greasy popcorn tin, hidden under some blankets in a bathroom closet. I'm not kidding. And that one discovery just blew the lid clean off a secret that had been buried for almost a decade. So picture this. It's a quiet morning in November 2021 at this lavish lake house in Gainesville, Georgia. IRS criminal investigators raid the place. Yeah, they find some cash, but the real prize, the thing they're really after, is this tiny little computer board stashed inside that popcorn tin. And on that little board, a crypto wallet holding over 50,000 Bitcoin. So right away, two huge questions pop up. First, who in the world is this Jimmy Zhong guy? And second, how on earth did he get his hands on billions of dollars in Bitcoin? Well, to answer that, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. See, long before the fancy lake house and the Lamborghinis, Jimmy Zhong was this really lonely, socially awkward kid. He was bullied. A lot. And his escape wasn't hanging out with friends. It was locking himself away in his bedroom with his computer where he taught himself how to code. And that skill, well, that's the skill that would one day make him a billionaire. And this is where you really see the two sides of his life. Socially, he was a total outcast. His home life was a mess, his parents were distant, they ended up getting divorced. But academically, the guy was an absolute genius. We're talking near-perfect SAT scores. He gets into the University of Georgia for computer science, and, this is the key, he stumbles onto Bitcoin way back in 2009 when it was basically worthless. He actually mined hundreds of coins but thought they were useless and just forgot about them. Until, of course, their value started to go to the moon. So in college, Jimmy's social life was all about parties, which unfortunately led him to a cocaine habit. And to get it, he turned to the most infamous place on the internet, the dark web marketplace, Silk Road. It was right there, while just trying to get his own money out, that he completely accidentally found a bug in their system. A tiny, tiny crack that he was about to smash wide open.
And the hack itself was almost laughably simple, especially for a 22-year-old kid. He'd put some Bitcoin in, and then he would just spam the withdraw button over and over. The system couldn't handle all the commands at once, so it would just glitch out and send him back way more than he put in. He did this again and again and again, and ended up draining about 50,000 Bitcoin from the platform. At the time, that was worth about 60 grand.
But, you know, stealing the crypto is one thing. Hiding it is another beast entirely. And Jimmy was an early expert in something called Bitcoin mixing. It's basically a way to tumble your stolen coins with a bunch of other transactions to wash them clean, making it almost impossible to trace them back to the crime. The guy was seriously ahead of the curve. Now this is where the story gets absolutely wild. The founder of Silk Road, the infamous Dread Pirate Roberts, he actually managed to track Jimmy down. But instead of sending threats, he sends a private message basically just asking, "How did you do it?" So Jimmy explains the flaw, and in return, the king of the dark web sends him even more Bitcoin as a thank you. You can't make this stuff up.
For years, Jimmy just sat on that massive pile of Bitcoin. He didn't touch it. But as the price exploded, he just couldn't resist anymore. The quiet, lonely hacker completely reinvented himself. He started using the online name Loaded and began this desperate multi-million-dollar mission to buy the one thing he could never get on his own: friends.
I mean, it's like he was two completely different people living in one body. You had the awkward kid who was ignored his whole life, and then you had Loaded, the millionaire, throwing cash around, trying to build this whole persona of some crypto whale who can move markets just for fun. It was all a show. And the spending, my God, the spending was just epic. We're talking multiple Lambos, a boat, flying his new friends all over the world on private jets. He would literally hand out USB drives loaded with 50 Bitcoin. At the time, that was worth over $1 million a pop. He even carried around a suitcase with $800,000 in cash in it just to try and impress people. It was all about the flash. So here's the irony. Jimmy was a genius at covering his digital tracks for nearly a decade. But in the end, it wasn't some sophisticated cyber investigation that took him down. Oh no. It was a series of simple, almost clumsy mistakes in the real world. And it all started with a single 911 call.
This timeline just lays out the train wreck perfectly.
First, he calls the cops because someone stole $400,000 in cash from his house. Right away, that puts a giant red flag on the IRS's map. Then a few months later, he makes this tiny technical mistake while selling some of his legally mined Bitcoin, and then the final nail in the coffin, in 2020, he moves his stolen Bitcoin and reuses that exact same digital address. Boom, that's it. The IRS now had a direct, undeniable line connecting Jimmy Zhong to the Silk Road heist.
So what was this fatal error? It's all about something called a change address. Okay, think of it like this. You pay for a coffee with a $20 bill, and you get change back, right? In Bitcoin, when you spend part of a wallet's balance, the leftover change gets sent to a new linked address. By reusing an address that was already connected to his real identity, he accidentally tied his clean money to his dirty money. A tiny mistake with billion-dollar consequences.
So, after the raid, with investigators holding this unbreakable blockchain proof, Jimmy knew the game was over. There was no way out. He cooperated, gave the government the keys to his encrypted wallet, and had to finally face the music for a crime he committed a decade earlier.
And the final numbers are they're staggering. The government seized over 51,000 Bitcoin, valued at $3.4 billion. And what's really wild is that after all that time, Jimmy had only spent about 1% of his massive fortune. They took everything, the cash, the house, even his shares in a real estate company, wiped out.
So what do you get for pulling off one of the biggest crypto heists in history? His sentence was just 1 year and 1 day in prison for money laundering. It's a shockingly short sentence, especially when you remember that Ross Ulbricht, the guy he stole from, is serving life without parole. After he got out, Jimmy's so-called friends were all gone. The billionaire who gave away millions was now totally broke. Today, he works as a rideshare driver.
And that brings us to the end. This is a quote from Jimmy himself, looking back on everything. He had more money than anyone could ever dream of, but it was all built on a crime. He tried to use it to buy a life, to buy acceptance, but in the end, it all just vanished, leaving him with a question that's as profound as it is heartbreaking.